Hello, everybody, and welcome to BC Buckets, the first episode of our Versus series. Today, we're going to be looking at Jabari Smith versus Paolo Banchero, two of the top three draft prospects in this year's class. Colin, there's a lot of debate. Is Paolo going to go number one? Is Jabari going to go number one? Is Chet Holmgren going to go number one? While I'm very high on Chet Holmgren, I think this was the right thing for us to start with because you have two players that are both around 6'10", two forwards, and two players who are going to be undoubtedly in, two of the top three picks. So why not go through and let's have a nice little debate at who's going to be better, who the better prospect is, and how we see it playing out. So I have Jabari Smith from Auburn. You have Paolo Banchero from Duke. Are you ready?
I am ready. I'm ready. I feel like we're going in like a face-off challenge. We're next to each other on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you ever watch Iron Chef?
No.
Oh, well, that's what this is.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of different examples you could have given
Yeah,
that are
just
more
for some reason,
popular.
just thinking of like us just like tearing it up on a grill like a steak or something. That just
Okay. Yeah, my cooking skills aren't that great.
mine aren't either,
So,
but that's what makes it a good competition.
yeah, maybe we should have done it then, honestly.
Yeah.
Could have just that would have been a trip. Wasted a lot of money doing that. But all right. How about with this? We both give introductory statements for like 30 seconds why we like this player,
Okay. I
and
like
then
that.
we kind of go off of that. All right. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I think you should take honors since we read left to right and you're on the left side.
There you go. So Jabari Smith, Auburn, 6'10". For those who don't know, I cover LSU for Go 24/7, and I saw a lot of Jabari Smith, obviously in the SEC. 19 years old. I know a lot of people compare him to a Rashard Lewis type. Some people were comparing him to Kevin Durant because he comes out, averages 17 points per game, 7.4 rebounds, 1.1 blocks, 42% from three, 43% from two, which is a little concerning, but he's an absolute dead-eye shooter. Makes threes with people contesting him, hands in his face, so you can't guard him with smaller guys. And while his dribble creation leaves some to be desired, I think that is something that he can improve upon pretty easily in the NBA. But if nothing else, his floor is extremely high as a three-point shooter, and I think he's a really good defender as well. So for those reasons, I think I have him as the better prospect here than Paolo Banchero.
Those are good points, actually.
I
'Cause
mean,
it's hard
when
to
you watch him shoot,
Yeah,
when you watch him shoot,
it's
it's
hard to separate
intoxicating.
these two, which is why we're doing this whole versus series,
Yeah.
right? There's not really anyone you can compare to Chet, so we got Paolo and Jabari. So for Paolo, he goes to Duke, as everyone probably knows. He's 6'10", 250. He's 19 years old, and this dude averages 17 points per game. He's 32% from three, 7.7 rebounds, and 2.1 assists. The assists don't really kind of explain how good of a playmaker Paolo is. I feel like that's really his upside, right? He's a versatile. I guess he would be a center in college, but I think he's going to play more of the four position and maybe even get some wing looks because he's going to have the ball in his hand a lot. His shot creation is great. He has great footwork. He's very unpredictable, and he knows his angles around the rim. And because of that, he commands a lot of attention, which opens up his teammates. And at Duke, obviously, you have lots of teammates who are really good, and there's a lot of them on this draft board coming up. So those guys are able to get open shots because of him. So, he's athletic, he's a dynamic finisher, and he's a playmaker above all else. And I think you can kind of see him as like a more matured Blake Griffin with the athleticism of old Blake Griffin, I guess. Maybe a New York Knicks last year, Julius Randle, whatever you want to call him. I think that's kind of the archetype of what he is.
I think the biggest question I have for Paolo Banchero, which I think we could start looking at his game and
Mm-hmm.
why I'm a little lower on him than Jabari Smith in particular. Um, I agree with everything you said offensively. Offensively, I think he projects as a really talented four-man. Um, how much can he play the five? Like you said, I don't know at the NBA level, but teams are getting smaller here. But in order for him to play the five, even have a chance of playing the five, he'd have to improve defensively in stretches, like in strides. He'd have to take strides forward here, and I just don't see that as being a realistic thing, at least in the first half of his career, the first 3-4 years of his career. And with that being said, these players are going to subpar teams, right? To where
Right.
they're not going to be fighting for playoffs they're not going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals like we're watching, Grant Williams out here. He's not going to have to get to that level yet. But can he even reach that level? We haven't seen him try on defense. We haven't seen anything that gives us indication that Paolo Banchero can be a good defender at the next level. And so with that being the case, I think that lowers his ceiling to a degree.
I would agree if Duke hasn't had a history of players coming out of there without any defense. Jason Tatum being, I guess the largest example in recent memory, because now he's a pretty good defender on the Celtics. He didn't defend in college. I think he had an injury back then. But Duke is known for just scoring a lot of points, right? They get these really big recruits. And then on top of that, Coach K's retiring, and he's kind of, it's almost like he's putting his job in their hands in a sense of like, this is my last hurrah, now go do it. And it almost kind of makes you want to check out a little bit in a way. So I would say that he has the athleticism and the intangibles to be a plus defender. Now, I do agree, the mental lapses, the lack of intensity on defense. I completely agree on those things. But I do think that it's not because he doesn't have the athletic tools to do so.
And the last thing I'll say about Paolo here is it feels like he has a little bit of everything, right? He has he has the creation, he has the passing, he has a handle, he's versatile. Obviously, he has the athleticism. It feels like he doesn't have that one thing that you're like, okay, that's what makes him great, right? Like, and that's what I think for him as a prospect, he has all the tools to be great, but the floor isn't as high as Jabari's. Would you agree with that?
I would completely agree with the floor. I would say Jabari is the safest pick in the draft, like by far, in my opinion. But I think that, like you said, if he's able to get if Paolo is able to get a couple of those things to be great and not just good, instead of being a jack of all trades, he's a master of a few, then it would be very beneficial. And obviously that you start talking about all-star level there. My floor for Paolo is like 6-man, like a scoring guy, something like that. Whereas with Jabari, especially, he can do 3-and-D, and any team will take that every single day of the week. Whereas Paolo, he requires the ball in his hands. So, well, I should say if he wants to reach his ceiling, he requires the ball in his hands. And I think that is a asterisk on why you wouldn't take him. But I think the ceiling is worth it in this case.
So I saw all the player comp before we get to your arguments for Paolo over Jabari. I saw a lot of player comps for Paolo. Obviously, Julius Randle was a popular one. So I tried going off the grid a little bit here, right?
Okay.
So here are 3 names that I have, and none of them are perfect, but I like.
We'll say shades of
to quote Kevin O'Connor. There you go. Shades of Jeremy Grant.
Okay.
Shades of Raptors Chris Bosh.
Okay.
And John Collins.
I like the John Collins one.
Okay, we got 1 out of 3 from Collins.
We got 1 out of 3 at Emmy. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I had Julius Randle and Pistons Blake Griffin. It's tough because you don't really see. And the first one on my head when I thought was like, not necessarily maybe player comp, but in terms of floor ceiling comp, I guess, would be Marvin Bagley. I thought, he's first overall. Was he second or first? I don't remember. I guess the top.
No, he wasn't first.
He was second because Ayton went first.
Yeah.
He was second, and I was like, okay, he's going to be either really good or he's going to be a 6-man. And where is he right now? He's playing on the Pistons as a 6-man. Starting occasionally, but that's kind of where he is right now. Now, obviously, he can get better, but I think that's kind of how Paolo is like you said, he's really good at a lot of things. He's athletic. It'll take him a far way. It's what is he going to be great at? And I think that you take that chance on a player with a high enough floor and all those skills.
Yeah. All right. What do you got? Questions and knocks on Jabari?
I guess I'll just go straight in. Straight in. I think the main thing is ball handling. I think that for him to take the next step to go from 3-and-D to that all-star player level player that you want, you need to not look stiff in the open floor. You need to make sure you get low to the ground when you dribble. Basically, his only shot creation is a jab step, off the catch, which obviously he's knocked down. Like I can't hit that. So I think that's an issue. Second, finishing. He's 6'10", 210, and he needs to score like that in the paint. I forgot what the percentage was inside, but it's not great. And there's lots of things there. And then decision making. I think if you're going to take someone if you want to say second or third overall pick, maybe number one in some people's cases, you'd like to see your number one pick be more developed in decision making, especially in the playmaking. Passing wise, he kind of loses control, especially when he gets lost in the post. So I think that's an important thing. But he did show flashes, and I think that, I guess, are those flashes worth it?
The thing for me, obviously, he's not Kevin Durant coming out of college, right?
Right.
That was a different level of prospect to where he could put on the floor, get to the rim. But the thing for me is that we've seen players improve their ball handling and creations, I think, more quickly than them improve their 3-point percentage. And I think a player that I look at in a similar vein, and I actually don't have him here as a player comp, but look at like an OG Anunoby, right? Who also improved his 3-point shooting, but he's scoring in a variety of ways right now. I mean, you can go down and find a player on almost every team that has improved their ball handling at the forward position to become a threat off the dribble. And I think Jabari, while he doesn't at the moment have the handles, I think that if we project him forward, I don't see him being a spot up shooter his whole career. I think he takes that step forward. I think that once that happens, I don't see Paolo Banchero getting his 3-point shooting. I don't see Paolo Banchero getting the 3-point shooting to match Jabari Smith. But I could see Jabari Smith getting the handles and the creation to score the ball much more efficiently than Paolo Banchero. And not for nothing, Jabari Smith is already a better defender than Paolo Banchero. So because of those two things, I think you have to look at Jabari as one of the top prospects here, and I think a better prospect than Paolo.
I mean, yeah, I honestly, it's hard to counter that, because I think coming into this, it's like they're toss up. Not only that, I think that, like you said, I would almost take Jabari Smith, or I'd probably take Jabari Smith over Paolo, but we have to have an argument for both.
And for the fit argument, I mean, if we look at just the mock draft real quick, and we can wrap this up. Obviously, we look at Chet Holmgren, who we're not going to do a argument of, because there's not really
comparison.
There's really nobody you can compare to him, right? But so let's say that the Orlando Magic take Chet Holmgren, right? Let's just say that for argument's sake. You're the Oklahoma City Thunder at 2. Who are you taking between these two? You obviously have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort. They just picked Alexei Pokusevski in a couple years ago. I mean, you have a Josh Giddey last year, so you have some creation.
You have creation. And I guess you take Jabari Smith.
So you probably take Jabari, but I mean, I could see a role in which Paolo fits in there, because
but that's the thing with Paolo, right? Is, like you said, and which I think is not a knock. I'm not trying to make it a knock where being versatile is a knock on any player, but it almost like it has to pick and choose the skills that he's good at and take away some of the ones he's good at. And you don't want to have to pigeonhole a player like Paolo, because then eventually he won't reach his ceiling. It's like when you see all the time, it's like in high school when you're good at shooting threes, but you're big, so you're only allowed to be in the post type of thing, right? And you don't want Paolo to be a type of guy where he's pigeonholed to a specific organization's idea of him. I think that's important with fit. Whereas, like you said, Jabari Smith, anyone will take a 3-and-D.
I'll tell you what, though, if Paolo Banchero goes to the Rockets at 3, that team might be the worst defensive team in NBA history. Like
that'd be crazy.
Jalen Green and Paolo Banchero back-to-back years, I'm not sure that team gets a single stop all season. That is.
So do I give you comps now? Is that what we're going to do?
Yeah, sure. Who do you got?
So obviously Rashard Lewis.
Okay.
I also said, I don't know, probably shades of a tall Mikal Bridges.
I like that.
And then I didn't write this one down, but I thought about it a lot, but I couldn't really tell, because I don't remember Chris Middleton when he was younger, but I think a Chris Middleton fits a little bit.
Younger, he didn't play. He was on the Pistons. He was a bum.
We traded him so fast. It was like a flash. It was a flash. But I think not all-star Chris Middleton, obviously.
Yeah.
Because he's a lot more dynamic. So those would be my three comps there.
I tried to go off the beaten path for the second one. The first one, I have Michael Porter Jr. Because of on offense. I don't think I think he's a much better defender than Michael Porter Jr. at this point.
Yeah.
Defensively, I could see it, make contested shots, be just a knockdown shooter. Second one I have, again, a little different. Very different. Danny Granger. Remember Danny Granger?
That's
6'9".
interesting.
He was a little bit more of a interior force than Jabari, yes. But I mean, he was putting up 7 threes a game one season. He was an all-star one season. He shot like 38% for his career from three. Yeah, I gave him a shout. Danny Granger. Shout out Danny Granger. So yeah, there you go. There you have it. That is Jabari Smith versus Paolo Banchero. Let us know what you think. Who's the better prospect? Who should go number 2 to Oklahoma City? Follow us on Twitter right there at BC Buckets. Thank y'all for joining us, and we'll talk to y'all later.